Politicizing the wage war. Fast food workers in hundreds of cities walking off the job this week. It's all part of union-backed protests demanding $15 an hour. And President Obama agreeing it's time for a raise in the minimum wage.
I'm going to keep pushing until we get a higher minimum wage for hard-working Americans across the entire country. It will be good for our economy.
But as the unemployment rate is heading in the right direction, would this wage hike have jobs taking a hike? Hi, everyone. I'm Brenda Butner. This is Bulls and Bears. Let's get right to it. Here they are, the Bulls and Bears this week. Gary B. Smith, Tracy Burns, Jonas Max Ferris, John Layfield, along with Bernard Whitman. Welcome to everybody. So, John, will pushing the minimum to the max push out jobs just as they're coming back?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the wrong thing to do in an economy that is showing some signs of recovery. And remember, they're targeting the wrong people. Look, this is a great union and a Democratic slogan to say, hey, look at the CEO, how much he's making. You mean you can't raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour? Take McDonald's, for example. They're the poster child in all this fast food business. They will tell you they don't set the wages for the local franchises. These are your moms and pops. These are your neighbors out there. They can't afford. They don't have huge margins to raise the wages to $15 an hour. And remember, if you want to help poverty, this isn't the way to do it. The earned income tax credit does it. Take this out of politics. Take this out of unions. Index it to something. Remember, 67% of people that make minimum wage work part-time. $53,000 a year is what the average person who makes a minimum wage, that household makes. This does not do a lot for poverty, but it does hurt small business.
And Bernard, does it hurt, the young people, the college students who are flipping burgers? They don't want to make a career of it, but they're part-time, and raising the wage would probably get them out of a job.
Actually, I totally disagree with that. There's very little evidence to suggest that a modest increase in the minimum wage, tying it to inflation, actually has a net job loss.
Yeah, but they're asking for double what we currently have.
I don't think that's appropriate. I fully support the president's call to raise the minimum wage, and as he said back in February, tie that to inflation, tie that to cost of living. That makes sense. How can anybody earn a living on $15,000 a year? It doesn't make sense. I don't support a wholesale increase of it to 15. I think that would be too much. But tying the minimum wage to inflation so we don't have to go through this every 3, 4, 5, 6 years and give people an opportunity to actually live on the minimum wage. That's what we've got to do, and tying it to the cost of living and the inflation rate would be the first step to do that.
Well, Gary B., what does history show us about raises in the minimum wage and unemployment?
Exactly, Brenda. From 2007 to 2009, the minimum wage was raised 41%. And you look at, you talked about the college age and the high school age. You walk into McDonald's, those are the people that are working there. So what happened to that group? Well, 16 to 19-year-olds, the unemployment rate went from 16 to 26%. So it's those exact people. They're not looking, and by the way, they're not the people that are the household leaders, as Bernard alludes to. Those are just, college and high school kids, as you point out, looking to earn a few bucks. Look, the best thing that these people can do in order to raise the wage that the McDonald's franchise owners are paying is to simply not take the job. If they don't take the job and other people do take the job, it says there is a market to work for the minimum wage. If everyone stood back and said, no, those are unacceptable, then the franchise owners would have to raise the wage in order to stay in business or simply go out of business. Look, this works against the workers in the long term. It's really just a horrible idea. Let the free market work.
And Jonas, does it hurt consumers as well as workers?
I would think it's going to hurt consumers more than workers. The economy's picking up. You can actually handle these costs to some extent without leading to layoffs. If this happened 2 or 3 years ago, we had a higher minimum wage. Yeah, it would have led to a higher unemployment rate. But at this point, it would do what, like the oil, let's say oil prices when they went to $40 a barrel to $150 before the recession. Walmart didn't just fire everybody because their costs went up. Did prices go up ultimately? What would happen? And it's because a company like Walmart doesn't make enough profits, believe it or not, to give everybody a $6 raise across the board per hour. There's just not enough profits there. They're not going to go broke, though. They're going to pass on the costs. So ultimately, this is all going to be paid by the consumer. The margin won't even change that much at a Walmart or profit, but you're going to see at McDonald's get rid of the dollar menu is what's going to happen. So is that a better worst scenario, it might be that some people make higher wages and consumers have to pay more and buy less. But that's what the result is going to be.
Tracy?
But I think, you know, as your accounting dork on the panel, if you go through the payroll cost increases, how do you offset it if you're not selling more burgers, which you're probably not going to be? I don't care that the economy's turning around. People are still struggling, okay? So if you don't bring in more revenue, you have to offset that payroll cost. So what does that mean? That means the people who own the place are going to take home less. They're going to hire less or lay off, or the people that already have jobs are going to get less hours. That's the bottom line. So they're essentially screwing themselves by asking for more money.
Bernard, what do you think?
Look, I think that, like I said before, to go from 7.25 to 15 is too much. But to tie it to inflation makes basic sense. You're talking about not just a handful of college students and high school students. You're talking about 4 million people that deserve more than $7.25 an hour.
Well, if you know, Gary B, if we say take it up according to inflation, if we say take it up according to $15 an hour, why not just say take it to $50 an hour to get rid of poverty?
Exactly. You know, you're right. Exactly. You say, okay, well, you know, Bernard says 15 is too much. Well, what about 14? Well, maybe that's too much. Well, what about that? As if, you know, the powers that be somehow know the magic number that's right. And as, you know, getting back to Bernard's point, he says to tie it to inflation, I think these workers would still be protesting because what has inflation, according to the government, done this year? It's done nothing. Right. What are they going to do? Like see an extra 15 cents an hour in their paycheck? They would amount to nothing. In fact, what if inflation was negative? Do they take less money?
And Brenda, one of the things we've talked about here a lot is that minimum wage is a starting point. It's not supposed to be the American dream. Like, woohoo, I'm making $7 an hour. I can die now. It's a goal. It's a beginning. It's a start. We have to push and want for more. And so do all these people. You don't want to live on this for the rest of your life. You want to get better.
So, John, it's not that you want to make a career in flipping burgers at McDonald's. That's a beginning. You're a college student. That's where you want to start.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where most people start. 7/8, according to McDonald's, of their contract positions started at minimum wage. It is an entry-level position. The one thing I agree with Bernard on is that you should index this to something, probably not just inflation, probably another basket of wages, so you take this out of political hands. Look, we've got another debt crisis coming up, potential government shutdown, and they're arguing over a $15 minimum wage. This is smoke and mirrors to get away from the real problem that there are almost 50 million Americans right now in poverty. More than any time in the history of our country. What this country needs is jobs, any type of jobs. You need to get away from this, take this out of the union's hands and the political hands by linking this to something with inflation and probably a basket of wages.
Bernard, why not just link it to the market? Why not just let the market decide?
Well, no, I agree with John. Linking it to inflation and maybe even a broader index of wages makes perfect sense. It depoliticizes it. But you know what? This is not a union issue. It's not a political issue. It is a hand-to-mouth existence issue, and I think it's only fair. You know, I think Gary B said, well, the inflation was so low this year. If you compound that for the last 4.5 years, it would stand to reason that that $7 would be closer to the $8, $9 range. And I think indexing it to inflation once we adjust and bring the minimum wage up to $9 or $10 an hour makes a lot of sense.
Gary B, last word?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. Why can't the market work in these cases? The market seems to work across all other areas except where the government demands price controls and minimum wage where it doesn't work.
Okay. Thanks, guys.